Hello, good evening everyone. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. Today is 9th September 2024 and today we have some important articles for the discussion, and one by one we'll try to discuss all these important articles in a very detailed manner. And before discussing them, yesterday I have given one prelims practice question which is regarding the Wolbachia method. Remember, I've already told you that this is a very important question because previously UPSC has already asked a question regarding this Wolbachia method, and the question is the Wolbachia method sometimes seen in news is regarding the control of which of the following diseases, and the correct answer for this question is option A, dengue disease. And if you look at the explanation of this particular question, Wolbachia method is considered as a revolutionary approach, or it is considered as a revolutionary method to vector-borne disease control. And in fact there are a lot of diseases which are considered as vector-borne diseases such as Zika, chikungunya and dengue. So this Wolbachia method is a biological method, and this method would be used to manipulate the mosquito populations, and hence so that would results in a reduction in the transmission of mosquito-borne diseases such as dengue, Zika and chikungunya. And on right side you could also see how this Wolbachia method would usually work. So Wolbachia would be injected into the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, and these Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are a vector for the dengue disease, and this Wolbachia would be injected into the Aedes aegypti eggs. And then so once Wolbachia would be injected into the Aedes aegypti eggs, so these eggs would not hatch due to the cytoplasmic incompatibility which is present in these eggs because of the Wolbachia injection into the eggs. So this is how this Wolbachia method would work, and that would biologically reduce the mosquito population, and that would further prevent the spread of the vector-borne diseases such as dengue, chikungunya and Zika, right? So today also we have another important prelims practice question which is geography based question. The question is, which of the following rivers of Africa drains into the Mediterranean Sea? So this is the question, and remember Africa is a very important continent from exam point of view, and every year at least there will be one question from the African continent about rivers, about mountains or any other physical features or any other ethnic conflicts that took place in Africa. So therefore Africa is a very important continent, and this is a question which is based on African rivers. And try to answer this question in the comment section, and we will be giving you the correct answer in the next class. And without any further delay, let's get into the discussion. And the first article that we are going to discuss is about the working women's hostels on safety. And in fact Center has decided to rank the working women's hostels on safety, so essentially to ensure safety and security of a working woman in urban areas, and also to encourage more and more female labor force participation in the total workforce in India. Because if you look at the female labor force participation in India, it is very low compared to several other developing countries as well. So in order to increase the female labor force participation rate, the government has decided to rank the hostels across India on the basis of different parameters, essentially to ensure safety and security of a working woman in the urban areas, right? So we will understand the context, and after the context we will also understand the details of this particular measure of the government. So Center is all set to launch a ranking system. So in this ranking system all the hostels across the country would be ranked, and that will help a woman choose the best hostel which ensures safety and security of a woman, and that would also make the existing hostels more and more competitive to ensure safety and security of a woman, right? So Center is all set to launch a ranking system for working women's hostels across the country, which is based on certain parameters mostly relating to their own security, right? So this is the context, and in fact the ranking to be made available on a website, and in fact it will be considered as a one-stop solution, a list of all working women's hostels across the country, so that women, especially particularly the working woman, can choose a best hostel which ensures safety and security of women. And in fact this particular move of ranking hostels of working women aim to ensure a better participation of women in the workforce. Remember, as I have already told you, that the female labor force participation rate is very poor in India. So in order to further encourage female labor force participation rate, it is very important to ensure safety and security in the women's working hostels in the urban areas. And in fact this portal, which actually hosts the list of all the working women hostels, will have a list and will also have a rank of all existing hostels which are run by the private players, institutions and the union and state governments in each city in these urban areas. And apart from that, the guidelines will also be based on security and cleanliness in those hostels and other desired facilities at such establishments. However, the initial plan is to co-opt 200 of such hostels in each year, with the target of being 1,000 at the end of 5 years. So the government would usually rank around 1,000 working women's hostels across the country, and in fact the portal will eventually give a similar ranking of trenches in each of these cities. And apart from co-opting the existing hostels, the government is also working on establishing the women's hostels, working women's hostels. So these working women's hostels are known as the Nirbhaya hostels, and in fact nearly 25 of such hostels have already been established at Delhi University, Nagaland, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh and Punjab. In these states, Nirbhaya hostels were already established, and union and state governments will have a 60:40 fund sharing ratio for these Nirbhaya hostels for the working women in the urban areas. And these Nirbhaya hostels are government set up hostels which ensure safety and security of women. Apart from providing the residential facilities, these Nirbhaya hostels will also offer a transit stay for women who wanted to appear for interviews and even exams also. So therefore these hostels are woman friendly, woman dedicated hostels, and which ensure safety and security for the woman, even for the transit stay of women as well. However, the center has an existing scheme to provide hostel facilities for the working woman called the Sakhi Niwas, which is being launched under the mission Shakti. Okay, so this is going to be the existing scheme to provide hostel facilities for the working woman, which is called as Sakhi Niwas, which is launched under Mission Shakti. We have to understand one thing, that in recent times women's safety and security came to the limelight, and in this context both central government and state governments have been coming together, which are committed and determined to ensure safety and security of women across the country. And one such move is setting up hostels or ranking hostels across the country, which ensures safety and security of women. To implement this particular scheme, a financial assistance for the working women's hostels is directly released to the respective state governments by the union government under this Mission Shakti's Sakhi Niwas. And there are around 494 functional working women hostels across the country, with daycare facilities for the children, according to data which is being shared by the union government in the parliament. So this is about the working women's hostels and the center's decision to rank these hostels based on safety and security which is being provided by these hostels, and that ranking will help a woman choose the best hostel for their safety and security, and that would also enhances the competitiveness among all these hostels. And the next important article is uncommon cyclones in Arabian Sea. And we all knew that India has a huge coastal area, and in fact India, the peninsular part of India, is sandwiched by two important seas, Arabian Sea and also Bay of Bengal. And both Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal are more vulnerable to the cyclones. However, in recent times, the cause of concern is that both Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, the frequency and intensity of such cyclones has increased a lot, and that has resulted in increased vulnerability of India's eastern coast and also the western coast as well. So one reason for increased frequency and intensity of these cyclones is a climate change. Climate change is the factor which has been changing the sea surface temperatures and changing sea surface temperatures, resulting in the origin of more and more cyclones in the Arabian Sea as well as the Bay of Bengal region. So however, we will understand how these cyclones are originating in both Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, and how these cyclones are becoming more and more common in Arabian Sea. Now firstly, briefly understand the context. So the context is that this is vast Indian Ocean, and so within this vast Indian Ocean there's a northern Indian Ocean and the southern Indian Ocean, and this northern Indian Ocean would supplies a large part of moisture which is required, that is required for cyclones in both Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal region, and that specifically implies a lot of evaporation has been taking place in both Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal region, so which usually requires these seas to be warm enough, and when both Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal are warmer enough, and that would allow more and more evaporation, and even warm tropical oceans also tend to be the hotbeds of cyclones because of climate change. When sea surface temperatures are increasing and they are able to they are able to generate the convective currents, and that could create a large scale cyclones or increased intensity and frequency cyclones in both Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal region. And in fact, so if we look at the Indian Ocean region is very well known for receiving a lot of attention in recent times for its monsoonal circulation. So we all knew about the monsoonal circulation that usually takes place over the Indian subcontinent, and even the dramatic seasonal wind reversals to the north of the equator. So we all knew that if you look at the seasonal wind reversals in India, this is the southwest monsoon and this is the northeast monsoon. This is known as the seasonal wind reversal that usually took place over the Indian subcontinent. And in fact, the Arabian Sea warms rapidly, and this Arabian Sea warms rapidly during the pre-monsoon season as the sun crosses over the northern hemisphere. So we all knew that Earth is divided between the northern hemisphere, divided through by equator, and north part of equator is known as northern hemisphere and the southern part of equator is known as southern hemisphere. And during the pre-monsoon times, so April, May, that particular point of time, so the Arabian Sea would be warms rapidly during the pre-monsoon times because the sun crosses over the northern hemisphere during the pre-monsoon times. And in fact, the Bay of Bengal region is relatively warmer than the Arabian Sea, but warms further and begins to produce the atmospheric convection and even rainfall during the monsoon times. And the post-monsoon season in the northeast monsoon season for India, so the post-monsoon season usually starts from October and that lasts up to December. So this month is known as the post-monsoon season, and post-monsoon season is the northeast monsoon season for India, and it also produces a significant amount of rain over several states, particularly the state of Tamil Nadu, because of its topography, and the coastal Andhra Pradesh, they receive a huge rainfall during the northeast monsoon. And in fact, all the wind patterns and even sea surface temperatures usually influences the cyclogenesis throughout the year over the northern Indian Ocean. And in fact, so climate change plays a very important role influencing the increased intensity of and frequency of these cyclones that we recently seen. There are a number of cyclones cyclone Amphan, cyclone Hudhud, cyclone Titli. So there are a number of cyclones which have created a huge destruction. They have resulted in a havoc across the coastal areas of India, right? So how climate change has been shaping the frequency and intensity of cyclones in both Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea region, that we need to understand. So climate change without any doubt amplifies the uniqueness of Indian Ocean, because the more heat is coming in from the Pacific Ocean. Remember that Indian Ocean is connected with the the Pacific Ocean, and Indian Ocean along with the Pacific Ocean is known as the larger Indo-Pacific region, and because of that reason the northern Indian Ocean in particular and Indian Ocean in general has been receiving more heat from the Pacific Ocean, while Southern Ocean is also pushing the warmer waters towards the northern Indian Ocean. So therefore Indian Ocean is warming up rapidly due to these inputs, plus atmospheric changes in winds and humidity has been resulting in the formation of cyclones. And remember, there are certain conditions which favors the formation of tropical cyclones, and one such condition is warm sea surface temperatures. And into the Indian Ocean, both Pacific Ocean and Southern Ocean have been pumping in more and more warmer waters, and warmer sea surface temperatures would provide an ideal condition for the origin of cyclones. And apart from the warm sea surface temperatures, there are other conditions also which result in formation of tropical cyclones both in the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal region as well. So continuous supply of warm and moist air and strong Coriolis force, and even absence of strong vertical wind verge. So these are some of the conditions which are required for the formation of cyclones. And this North Indian Ocean and the monsoon are now responding to related climate change drivers, and the climate change drivers from the tropical oceans as well as from the pole to pole influences. So without any doubt, climate change has been playing one of the instrumental role in influencing cyclones in both Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, because the sea surface temperatures have been increasing and there is also a change in the wind patterns as well, right? So in fact, the strong convective activity, so convective currents over the Indian Ocean, particularly Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. So this strong convective activity over Bay of Bengal usually produces many low pressure or cyclonic systems during the monsoon, but they rarely grow into cyclones. So they generally don't grow into cyclones. This is primarily because of the strong monsoon winds vary in strength. So there are certain strong monsoon winds, but these monsoon winds usually vary in their strength and direction from the surface to the middle atmosphere, and this variation in the strength and direction of monsoon winds is called as a vertical shear, and it tends to strip off the energy from any cyclone that may be trying to grow over a period of time. And because of that reason, a strong monsoon wind varies in strength and direction from the surface to the middle of the atmosphere. So the net result of this interplay is that the dominant cyclone season is uniquely split into the pre-monsoon season and also the post-monsoon season over the northern Indian Ocean. And in fact, the warm ocean and heat content which is present in the warmer ocean waters and the atmospheric convention usually favors cyclogenesis over the Indian Ocean, and this usually leads to the formation of cyclones being formed during the both pre-monsoon times as well as the post-monsoon times. So remember, these are the conditions, and these conditions favors formation of cyclones, or that results in cyclogenesis. So Arabian Sea has much less convective activity during the pre-monsoon times and is relatively less prone to this cyclogenesis. The northeast monsoon and dry continental air further end up cooling the Arabian Sea post-monsoon season. The cooler temperatures and stronger wind shear and relatively low convective activity over Arabian Sea further make the Arabian Sea relatively a desert for the cyclones, and that is the reason generally cyclones don't originate over the Arabian Sea compared to the Bay of Bengal region. Now in this slide you could see there are certain conditions which are responsible for the formation of cyclones in both Bay of Bengal region and the Arabian Sea region, right? So in India, cyclones form in either side of the country, and either side of the country means, so cyclones usually form in Bay of Bengal and even Arabian Sea region as well, but once in the Bay of Bengal are more frequent and more intense than the Arabian Sea region. So why? So we will understand that. So cyclones in Bay of Bengal have certain characteristics and certain reasons as well for the origin of these cyclones. Because one reason that we need to understand is that Bay of Bengal is usually fed by the constant source of fresh water from giant rivers such as Ganga, Brahmaputra, and in the peninsular part of India, Krishna, Godavari and Mahanadi. So therefore that warms up the surface and rises up as a moisture and making it more and more difficult for the warmer layers of water to mix properly with the cooler layers which are present below the ocean surface, and therefore that would lead to the water stratification and even ready to feed any potential cyclone over it, right? So this is the one reason. And in fact, furthermore, because of the shape of the land around the Bay of Bengal, the winds are getting more and more slower and weaker over the ocean, and they start ready to spin. So this would be another factor which influences formation of cyclones over the Bay of Bengal region, right? So all these conditions makes the Bay of Bengal region is favorable for the formation of cyclones. But on the other hand, if you look at cyclones in the Arabian Sea region, the northern, central and western parts of Arabian Sea have a much cooler temperatures, right? So they usually have the much cooler temperatures, and the mountains in East Africa direct towards the Arabian Peninsula. So therefore that would result in dissipating the heat much more efficiently throughout the Arabian Sea. So disseminating the heat throughout the Arabian Sea, so that essentially means heat would not be concentrated at one single point in Arabian Sea, and heat increasing sea surface temperatures are very, very important for the formation of cyclones, and this is one reason which makes Arabian Sea uncommon for the formation of cyclones. So as a result, so this region is not favorable to feed the potential cyclones, and about half of the cyclones that move into this area typically lose energy and they start dissipating. However, in recent times we have also seen a more number of cyclones being originated in the Arabian Sea region as well, and that is because of the climate change and increasing sea surface temperatures and the abnormalities with respect to the sea surface temperatures, right? So I hope you have understood about this topic. And the next article, which is given in the Hindu newspaper, and it is very, very important for your gender studies paper 2, specifically social justice and governance part. So right, we'll try to understand this in a very detailed manner. Policy paralysis and even a weak public health care which is existing in India, right? So public health care in any country is very important, but we do not have a strong public health care that we have experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and even we have a huge presence of the private healthcare sector, and private healthcare sector's huge presence means a lot of out-of-pocket expenditure from the country's poor population, right? So in this context, we will understand all the shortcomings in the existing public health care system in India. So the recent union budget has critiqued for its inadequate focus on the social sector. It has not focused adequately on the social sector, specifically on the public health sector. Because of this particular reason, the budget and its allocations on the healthcare sector were heavily criticized, and in fact the public health policies which are usually followed by the government in the last decade have been indicating that there has been a severe paralysis when it comes to the public health policies of the people in the public health care, and then only then the government has to take an appropriate decision regarding this, right? So in fact, the public healthcare needs can be broadly categorized into three categories or three groups. First are the diseases of poverty such as tuberculosis, malaria and undernutrition, and maternal death, food and waterborne diseases, and infections which are being leading to typhoid, hepatitis and diarrheal diseases faced by the poor and vulnerable. So these are considered as the first category of broad diseases that the poor people usually face, and the second category of the diseases that the people usually face are the problems of middle class and those better off on issues that are related to environmental pollution, air, water, waste management and lack of drainage facilities. And most of these diseases which are due to the poor infrastructure which is prevalent, poor infrastructure development and even poor market regulations as well. So third category of diseases that we need to talk about is most popular needs of the public health are the curative care needs of a population. Provisioning of curative care is the most critical and controversial policy question in the public health. So a national rural health mission that was essentially started by the government for ensuring further strengthening the public health care facilities, so which was started in the year 2005 and followed by the National Health Mission of 2013, were a clear departure from the then existing National Health Policy of 2002, which was proposed by the commercialization of healthcare. Now commercialization of healthcare, as a result, the 70% of the healthcare in India is in the private hands, and just 30% of the healthcare in India is in the public hands. And apart from that, if you look at the public healthcare, so public healthcare, especially the primary healthcare, is in the hands of the public healthcare, but there is a poor presence of private sector in the primary healthcare, and primary healthcare is very, very important for any country at the grassroots level, but a lower presence of the private sector in the primary healthcare and poor infrastructure, poor healthcare facilities at the primary level also question the government's responsibility to provide more and more funding and more infrastructure to the public healthcare at the primary level. And in fact, a private healthcare would be considered as the real beneficiary of any programs which are being introduced by the government. And one such program that the government has introduced to provide healthcare insurance was Ayushman Bharat program, right? So the program was Ayushman Bharat program, and this Ayushman Bharat program would provide health insurance cover of 5 lakh rupees for every household, right? So this is the objective of Ayushman Bharat program. However, according to the real beneficiaries of public funded healthcare insurance schemes such as Ayushman Bharat in the Indian context is the private sector healthcare. Now private sector healthcare is the real beneficiary of such public funded health insurance programs, because first, health insurance cover is ideally implies covering all healthcare expenses across the world. It is unique that India's health insurance scheme covers only hospitalization expenses under this particular scheme. So that is the one disadvantages with respect to the Indian health insurance schemes. Further, outsourcing of the secondary and tertiary care services. If you look at the public healthcare, so public healthcare is widely prevalent in the primary healthcare sector, but in the secondary and tertiary care services there is a poor presence of the public healthcare sector. So as of now, it is said that government has outsourced the secondary and tertiary care services to the private sector at the market rates under the scheme. So this Ayushman Bharat scheme is an open acknowledgement of the government of its failure and even lack of intention to further strengthen the secondary and tertiary level public sector in healthcare in India. So therefore, the government should usually strengthen its presence, strengthen its capacity in the secondary and tertiary care services as well, and that would help the people, and that would also help providing universal health care, and that would also help in reducing the out-of-pocket expenditure of the people. And in fact, the major curative care challenge which is posed across the country is loss of trust towards the public healthcare providers. And in fact, people have been losing trust over the public healthcare providers, private sector, due to the commercial interests, higher expenses of healthcare. Because of that reason, the people have been losing their trust towards the healthcare providers, and even public sector due to overcrowding of healthcare with inadequate infrastructure and inadequate healthcare professionals. However, the government has already slashed the limbs of the public health system by not strengthening the secondary and tertiary care in the public sector, and instead of favoring the growth of the private sector, right? So the government in a way giving scope for the presence of greater private sector in healthcare rather than increased funding or government funding or public funding for the healthcare infrastructure, setting up more and more hospitals and more healthcare professionals across the country. And that is a cause of concern, and government should look to further strengthen the existing healthcare infrastructure across the country. And today we have one important mains practice question. The question is, India's nutritional shortfalls cannot be addressed solely by the government, and in this context analyze the role of public-private partnerships for combating nutrition and food security challenges. For any country, particularly a country like India with 140 crore population, food security is very important challenge that we need to achieve. And at the same time, nutritional security is also very important. Today, if you look at the infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, and lowering the learning outcomes among the children, all can be associated with the poor nutritional security. So therefore, we will understand, we'll try to approach this question first, and we'll try to answer this question as well. The approach is that first you need to briefly introduce India's food security scenario, and then you have to write the reasons for India's nutritional shortfalls. So what are the reasons for the nutritional shortfalls, and then discuss the role of public-private partnership in combating the food security challenges, and ultimately you have to conclude the answer by emphasizing on food security and nutrition security for a country like India. So in the introduction, so you just write experience of pandemic and results of first phase of National Family Health Survey 5, which is also known as NFHS 5, is considered as a serious wake-up call to rethink on the issues which are related to India's nutrition and even food security challenges. And according them, these two challenges are one of the highest priority by the government, and this is how you could briefly introduce this particular answer. And in fact, you could also write some data with respect to both food security and nutritional security also, so that would also be impactful in the introduction. And in the second part of the answer, the first part of the answer, so you have to briefly write some reasons for the India's nutritional shortfall. So what are the reasons for India's nutritional shortfalls? And if you look at those reasons, and first reason is absence of agriculture nutrition link, and this is one of the major reasons for the nutritional shortfalls. So even though in India 3/5 of rural households are agriculturalists in India, and more than 50% of India's population have been dependent on agriculture sector. So this is data from 70th round of National Sample Survey Office. Malnutrition rates are particularly high in several rural areas as per the National Food Security Act. So in India, the problem is hidden hunger. Hidden hunger is one of the key problem that we have been facing, and hidden hunger is because of malnutrition that is existing, and there's a lack of a link between agriculture and nutrition. And importance of cereal-based diet and inadequate food fortification is another major problem, and this has resulted in high calorific deficiency, protein hunger, and even micronutrient deficiency as well. And thirdly, underutilization of allocated funds for nutrition-based schemes. This will be the third reason, and lack of health awareness would be another reason. So poor breastfeeding, unhealthy diet are major challenges in India's nutritional shortfalls. So however, So these nutritional shortfalls must be met through various interventions. So various interventions, for example, biofortification of food, fortification of food, and setting up cringe facilities, and breastfeeding, and increasing awareness among lactating mothers. So everything has to be taken in a structured, in a holistic manner. And apart from that, there are certain other challenges as well. So those challenges include lack of adequate access to the nutritional and food due to corruption within the public distribution system, and leakages which are present in the public distribution system as well. And in fact, the exclusion, errors, and introduction of Aadhaar based biometric authentication systems, and all these problems also leading to the inadequate access to food grains. And other challenges including a shortage of trained manpower to cater to the nutritional needs of larger population. Though government of India has launched many schemes like integrated child development services, national nutrition mission, so which is considered as Poshan Abhiyan, to combat nutritional shortfalls, public-private partnerships are very important, and they are necessary to ensure effective last mile delivery of such schemes to every eligible beneficiary. So that would ensure food security, and that would also ensure the nutritional security as well. Now in this context, what is the role of the public-private partnership in combating nutrition and also ensuring food security for all the people who are considered as poor, otherwise deprived of the essential food grains and nutritional needs? And private sector has a technical know-how, private sector has expertise, private sector has the technology, and this technology, technical know-how and expertise can be leveraged, and that can be help in making nutrition security more and more affordable and accessible for the greater number of people, ensuring quality. For example, effective implementation of take-home ration scheme with the help of public-private partnership during the pandemic, and in fact the private sector can also be used for the fortification of the food grains, adding micronutrients to the food grains which are being distributed through the public distribution system. So apart from that, the faster acceptance of food fortification and promoting the food security is also a very important intervention that has to be taken from the public and private partnership perspective. And partnerships with globally interested entities such as Food and Agriculture Organization and UNICEF can usually help increase the credibility of such schemes in addressing problems such as malnutrition. And in fact, private companies can also cater to the nutritional needs of employees, and this would help in not only safeguarding the physical and mental well-being of employees, but also can boost productivity of employees, and thus contributing to the overall economic growth and economic development as well. And stakeholder engagement is another area. Now when we talk about the stakeholder engagement, it is necessary to involve all the stakeholders to create awareness regarding the criticality of health and boosting immunity, thus successfully achieving our commitment to achieving UN Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. However, it is not free from the challenges. There are a number of challenges we have to meet on this context. Corruption is one challenge. A lack of political will is also another major challenge, and ghost beneficiaries is a next challenge, right? So ghost beneficiaries, and when it comes to the pulses import dependency is another major problem. We have been importing pulses, which are very important sources of nutrition security, from countries like Mozambique and Tanzania, and also the exclusion errors which are existing in the public distribution system is also another major problem, and the leakage and diversion of food grains is also another major problem. And the private sector would very often work with the profit motive, but it is difficult to engage private sector at a sustainable scale because of the profit motive in the areas of food security and also nutritional security. So we need to overcome all these challenges, and we need to ensure the end goal of achieving both food security and nutrition security, which can be considered as a foundation, a strong foundation for achieving United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030, right? So that's how you could actually conclude this answer. And that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.